So welcome to another edition of the Rhone Infobites. This month we are joined by Derek. Derek, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Derek Findleton. I've been working with R-Biopharm Rhone for 16 and a half years, primarily in the food and feed area, but more recently we've been looking at the clinical market too.
Okay. So just as a little bit of an icebreaker, I normally like to ask our guests to share a funny story about food or share maybe information on one of the most memorable meals that you've ever eaten.
I can tell you about a particularly funny episode from about the year 2000 when we'd been snowboarding in Andorra. It was the end of the holiday. We were particularly hungry and waiting for dinner to arrive, which on this occasion seemed to be a very nice casserole served with vegetables and rice. And a friend of ours got tucked in and said, "Oh, the beef's particularly good today." And we had to tell him that it wasn't beef, it was in fact horse. He had a bit of a tantrum at this point, and then we pointed out that he'd quite happily eaten it for the previous 6 days, and we hadn't told him.
I have to say I would be in agreement with your friend. I wouldn't be too keen on eating horse either.
It tasted fabulous.
Was this that was before the horse meat scandal?
Oh, well before. Yeah, it would have been about 13 years before the famous scandal.
Some good times with the horse meat scandal for our company at that point.
It kept us busy.
It did, definitely. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today we are going to focus on mycotoxins and in particular mycotoxin legislation. You've been working in the food and feed industry, as you say, for 20 plus years. First of all, before we sort of talk about the legislation in more detail, do you want to give a brief overview for our listeners on what mycotoxins are, where they could be found?
Yeah, mycotoxins are a group of toxins which are formed by Aspergillus fungus in circumstances where the right conditions are available, which tends to be warmth and moisture. There are many different types, but they are generally not good in that they are cumulative and they tend to be carcinogenic. So they are nasty compounds, and that is why we have legislation for them. Yeah.
And, briefly, what kind of commodities are covered normally by legislation?
Well, you'll have things like coffee, cereals, grains, fruits, dried fruits, and spices would be probably the most common ones.
Yep. So as you say, mycotoxins are controlled by European regulations, but there have been updates with regards to ochratoxin recently, just at the end of 2022. Are you familiar with these updates?
I knew there was an update coming. The majority of the legislation that I'm familiar with is probably off the old document, which I think was the 1881-2006 document. So probably not fully aware of all the new changes.
Yeah, so I have to say that there's been a lot of changes this time. Normally it's only a few commodities that have been added, but I have my list here because it's hard to remember. There's a whole load of new products added.
Okay.
There actually have also been levels for coffee which have been reduced. So coffee, I think, was roasted coffee and soluble coffee. It was at 5 and 10 ppb, where now it's 3 and 5 ppb, so new lower levels there.
Yeah.
But there have been a range of new commodities added, as I say. Things like marshmallow root, dandelion root, orange blossom and ginger root. Now, are you familiar with all of those?
I'm not.
No, I mean, I'm an avid tea drinker, I have to say. So things like marshmallow root and dandelion root I've come across quite often in some of the teas, the herbal teas that I drink. So you can imagine quite unusual things there. But we have also new levels for vine fruits, cocoa powder, date syrup as well. There are levels for pistachios, and a range of seeds as well have been added. So things like sunflower and pumpkin seeds, watermelon seeds, hemp seeds and soya beans.
It's quite a few.
Yeah, definitely. Quite a wide range of different commodities there. So could you explain how you think that might affect sort of customers and laboratories going forward?
Well, I think the most difficult part they're going to have is making sure they have methods in-house which are capable of going down to the reduced levels.
Yep.
Obviously, by the very nature of some of the commodities you've mentioned there, we're talking about complex matrices. And so definitely I would think an element of cleanup is going to be required. Yeah,
I think particularly with HPLC, you need to make sure you've removed all the matrix effects to be able to reach the required LODs. So we have a range of immunoaffinity columns available for customers to help with this analysis.
Yeah.
Can you provide a sort of overview on the principle of immunoaffinity cleanup?
Yeah, so immunoaffinity cleanup, we essentially use a small column which has antibodies bound to a gel. And the idea is that you pass your sample over that column, and the analyte of interest is retained on the column. We then perform a wash step to get rid of any unbound, unwanted material, and then finally, using a solvent, we elute the sample off, and then you have basically a nice, clean, concentrated sample, which you can then put onto your detection system for the detection.
Yeah, and obviously suitable for HPLC and LCMS.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So R-Biopharm, we've been providing test kits for 35 years plus. But can you give what your experience and what you perceive as the benefits of working with us as a company and also with our products?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. We've been selling these products for a long time. The immunoaffinity columns are reliable, they're robust. But not only that, we are backed up by a very good technical support department. So they are able to help with complex matrices, with application notes, and I should imagine being valuable at a time where customers are hit with new legislations on new commodities and maybe may need a little help and guidance in doing those tests. Yeah,
I mean, you've been out in the field travelling just as much as myself, and I think for me it's invaluable being able to offer these application notes to labs to give them a starting point, a right direction to work with new matrices.
It's very nice to know we have that back in the office. Obviously, we sell a lot of columns to a lot of customers, but very often we'll be hit with a question which we haven't got a clue about, and it may need some investigation done in the laboratory. But to have that to fall back on is of great comfort to me, and I should imagine to a lot of our customers.
Yeah. I think anything that can help reduce the validation or the amount of investigatory work that they can conduct is definitely beneficial.
I mean, anything that saves time in this industry is generally well received.
Yeah, and as you say, the range of matrices that are now covered, there is no way every lab has the time or the ability to be able to look at all of these individually. So
that's right.
Our technical team have been busy over the last few months looking at these methods.
They are good.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much, Derek. It's been good just to chat to you about these new regulations. I'm sure we can help support customers, give them further advice going forward. What else can we provide to customers to help them transition at this time and to make sure they meet the requirements?
I think maybe supplying them with perhaps a nice poster with updated legislative limits on it. We obviously supply application notes as we develop them, and generally staying in touch with customers is our bag. So we'll make sure they're aware of any limits changing.
Yep. Perfect. Well, thank you, Derek. And that's it for another edition of the RHôNE Infobites series.
Thank you.
Thank you.